Hi book friends, this is Kat. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is my February wrap-up video, and in the month of February I also helped co-host the Fae-Bruary readathon, so I will mention that at the end of this video of what I did read for that. So let's go ahead and get started. With February's wrap-up, I read a total of 13 books. I had such a great time, especially with the retellings, and it was a very good reading month. Out of the breakdown of the books that I did read, I had 2 DNFs. I had 1 3-star read, 3 3.5-star reads, 3 4-star reads, 3 4.5-star reads, and 1 5-star read. So as you can see, I had a very good reading month. So let's go ahead and jump into those DNFs. So the DNF that I'm going to talk about first is called The Book Jumper. I did not write who it's by, so there's the picture there. This book is a secular YA book, and it follows this girl. I think her name is Alice or Amy. I can't remember what her name was, but it follows this teenage girl and her mother. The teenage girl and her mother have lived in Germany for quite some time, and the beginning of the book follows them going back to the grandmother's house. She lives, I think, on this island in Ireland, or I'm not really sure which island, but it's quite a bit of ways. And so there's some apprehension from the mother seeing the grandmother, and you don't really know why. But once the teenager finds out that the grandmother is pretty strict, but she has like one rule, and that is that Alice must read on this island. So you later find out that Alice is a book jumper, and something happens to the mother to where she didn't want to tell Alice that she was this book jumper, and the grandmother is very adamant that Alice learns where her heritage or her history, comes from, why they were tasked to be book jumpers, essentially. So that's kind of the gist of the story. I thought it was an interesting premise. I stopped about 22% though, because there were just little things here and there, and about 22% I just had enough of it. There were just a few tropes and topics that I just personally did not enjoy. There is mention of infidelity. There is mention of suicide, and just lewd comments about body parts or body image. And it was just the relationship also with the teenager and the mother was interesting. It was a very interesting dynamic. So it was just not a book for me, and I decided to put it down. So, but I liked the premise, just didn't like all the extra stuff with it. All right, the second book I'm going to talk about, this one is controversial, I feel, but it is A Voice in the Wind by Francine Rivers. I stopped at chapter 2. So the premise of this book is you follow this girl named Hadassah, and this is about 70 years after the crucifixion, and Hadassah is in Jerusalem during the siege, where the Romans are trying to break through, and there's a lot of there's kind of like a genocide of the Jews in a way during the first chapter. And that whole first scene, I mean, I read the first line and I thought, oh, this might not be the book for me, but I gave it a go, and it was just too graphic for me. That first chapter was just right on the line. The second chapter starts and you're following a different perspective. This guy, I think he's he's not Jewish, but he is like Greek, I think, and they're in the midst of a battle as well. And I know I've been warned in the comments a little bit about it. Unfortunately, it is just not a series that I can see myself enjoying. After I decided that I was going to DNF, I really wanted to see what were some of the things that people loved about it. So I did read the comments about that, and then I also wanted to see some of the comments that people may not like about the book, how it turned out, and I just felt like I would have probably been in the minority group. I have read 2 Francine Rivers books prior to this one, and one was Redeeming Love, which I did give a 4-star, but I remembered it was just right on the edge of comfortability for me just because of the topic that was being said, being talked about. And the second book that I read was The Atonement Child, which I think I gave a 4-star as well, but or maybe a 4.5-star, I can't remember, but I remember liking that one a lot more. So I feel like there are some hit or misses with Francine Rivers. I'm not going to write her off. I just think this series may not be the one for me. So, but I will say she knows how to write her characters and her settings very well. Kind of one of those writers where you can be immersed in that story. So that was unfortunate. All right, let's talk about my 3-star, 3.5-star ratings. So the first book I'm going to talk about is the 3-star read, and that is Too Small Tula by Annie Nook. And this one is a middle grade, maybe early child book. I don't think it's middle grade. Actually, I think it's like early children's chapter book. But this is part of my Read Around the World vlog that should have come up before this. So this is a small girl who lives with her grandmother and 2 siblings, and it's just little stories about her growing up with her grandmother. So I thought that this was cute. It is a first in a series, but they're all like little short stories. If you want to hear my more thoughts about it, it is in that vlog, but I thought that this was a sweet read. There is, though, one story in there that I didn't really like because of it was a bully situation and how this young boy reacted towards an elderly lady. But I said all that in my vlog. My 3.5-star reads. The first book I want to talk about is A Zoo in My Luggage, and it's also in that reading vlog. This follows a man who basically goes to the British Cameroons, and he is wanting to capture animals and create his own zoo. And like, he has a love for animals, he wants to study the animals. So it's inspired by a true story. And I did listen to this on audiobook, and I did enjoy it. I talk a little bit more in that vlog about the book, but it was a very interesting memoir. And I think it's actually part of a series because I think we don't get to the zoo building part until later on. The next 3.5-star read I'm going to talk about is Queen of Snow, and this is by Laura Burton and Jessie Cal. This is a Snow Queen reimagining, and I believe Jack Frost too. So you follow this teenager, because I believe it's also YA, and his grandfather died. He looks in this mirror, and all of a sudden he is transported into this storybook world, essentially. And you kind of follow, why is he significant? And you meet all these characters in like the storybooks, like Belle and Robin Hood, and you know, all of the classic Disney fairy tales. And he's trying to find his way back, essentially. And so I enjoyed the read. I've never read the Snow Queen's original tale, but I got to see a little bit more in this. And I enjoyed it. It's very fast paced. That first chapter, you just jump right into the plot. And I I appreciate that it happened fast-paced. But yeah, I enjoyed my time. It's the first of a series, so I can't wait to jump into that next one. The last book I'm going to talk about is The Princess Pact by Melanie Sellier, and I'm very happy that I finally got to this book. This book is a Rumpelstiltskin reimagining, and I will say when I first listened to the book, I was coming out of, like, I wouldn't say a reading slump, but I was definitely not feeling like I would like to read for, I don't know, whatever reason. But when I did listen to it, I did enjoy what I heard, but I just didn't really want to go back to it after I stopped reading it. So that was like the first half. I think another portion of it was I was out of this world for a long time. I haven't read the other book by Melanie Sellier. I want to say since summer, but I can't remember. So I was definitely trying to remember people and everything. But thankfully, this book didn't have a lot of people from the last book that I can remember. So it was kind of like a new set of characters. So this one was also pretty fast paced. I liked the second half a lot better because I felt like I was gaining momentum again, and it was pretty good with the plot twist and everything. So I enjoyed it. I would give this a Christian fiction rating of a 0, and what that means is it's a clean book and it could have been or is written by a Christian author. All right, let's go to my 4-star reads. The first one is this book, Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne, and this is a children's classic. This was also part of my this was also the book I was supposed to read for Alma's challenge, and I enjoyed this book. I thought it was so cute. It is part of a series, and I like the illustrations of Pooh and the characters. I think my favorite one to read, because it was so nostalgic to me, was this page because of how the words were written, and that's just like in the 1977 film. So yeah, I love it. Definitely a book that I'm going to consider putting into my own child's library when that time comes. Next 4-star reads, I have The Water Princess, and this book is a children's book, and this is part of that Read Around the World vlog as well. And essentially it's just about a young girl who lives in Africa and wakes up early morning going to retrieve water for the day. And yeah, I thought that this was cute. The illustrations were beautiful and very easy read. And the other one I have is also a children's book, and this is Anansi and the Lizard, a West African Tale. And again, the illustrations were great. I enjoyed it. It is part of that vlog that I mentioned, and it's just about this spider and this lizard, and just basically a very fun read. So, all right, let's go ahead and talk about those 4.5-star reads. And the first one I'm going to talk about is Shelter of the Most High, which was my pick for my biblical retelling challenge. This is the second book in the Cities of Refuge series. This book follows a woman named Sophia. She is the daughter of a pagan high priest, and during a series of unfortunate events, she is separated from her family, and she ends up in the city of Kadesh, which is the city of refuge that you see in the first book. And you do see some of the characters from the first book making their appearance in this book, which I absolutely loved. I loved the romance. I loved the characters that came back. The faith was great. And yeah, I just loved it. You also follow Ethan from the first book and his growth journey, because of what happened in the first book and what he's dealing in with this book. It kind of follows him, and yeah, it's just great to see these characters grow. And I enjoyed the audio. I thought it was great, even just her growth in this story. So I also gave this a Christian fiction rating of a 3. So the faith content was really good in this story. The next book I'm going to talk about is a buddy read that I did, and it is The Mermaid's Tale by Ellie Richmond. I buddy read this with Tay and with Celestia, and I'll link them down below as well. So this is a Little Mermaid kind of retelling, but not really, because you kind of follow the descendants of the Little Mermaid in a way. So this story is about Lachlan, and she is considered a Krura, which is a mermaid with legs, and she does not get treated well because of these legs. And so there is a family curse that she wants to break, and then you follow this man named Darren, or this merman named Darren. He's a treasure hunter, and he also has this impossible task that is thrown upon him. And so it's just one big adventure. There is a lot of lore in this. There's a lot of like twists and turns. I think every chapter was like one more thing, and it was such a great time. I really enjoyed this series. The one knock I will have to say about it is I was just not a fan of the romance. That was the only thing. And the romance kind of had like this miscommunication trope, which I found that I'm not a fan of, but I still enjoyed the book, even though I didn't like the trope. So anyway, so it's the miscommunication trope was not my favorite thing. And there was this age difference that I also did not really like. I mean, I don't mind age differences, but I think there was just such a focus on, especially from the guy, that, oh, I remembered Lachlan as a baby, and like he kept referring to her as like this child in a way. So it just got a little old for me. But other than that, great book. So great, in fact, that we buddy read the second book together, and that is The Locket's Curse. Oh no, The Locket's Revenge. And that had twists and turns in it as well. And yeah, I enjoyed it. 4.5 stars as well. But they're both really great reads. And I would say The Mermaid's Tale is a Christian fiction rating of a 1, but The Locket's Revenge is a 3. And so they do talk about the Wave Master in this duology, and that is, the Wave Master is considered like God in that series. So anyway, enjoyed it, recommend it. Okay, the last book I'm going to talk about is my 5-star read, and that is The Golden Braid by Melanie Dickerson. Absolutely love this book. I gave this a Christian fiction rating of a 3. This is a Rapunzel retelling, and I loved the plot of this. I loved the romance. I loved even like the villain that was portrayed in here, because I thought it was a pretty good villain. So essentially, like, the mother is suspicious of every man that wants to court Rapunzel, and so they move to different villages so that way Rapunzel essentially never leaves her mother. And you kind of find out why and everything, and I thought that it was such a good book. And you do follow some of the characters from the last book, so highly recommend. And yeah, probably my favorite of the series. So okay, that was my wrap up. And real quick, let's go ahead and talk about that Fae-Bruary TBR. I absolutely enjoyed being a co-host. I have found so many great books. So I just want to thank Tay at Tales and Treats with Tay putting on the readathon, and also asking me to co-host. I want to thank all my lovely co-hosts, to other co-hosts. You girls are amazing, and I'm sorry I didn't get to go on live streams with all of you. I know this was kind of a busy month for everyone, but it was just such a great time just even watching videos that you guys put out and finding recommendations. So I enjoyed it a lot. So for the Fae-Bruary TBR, I'll go through the books that I did read to match those prompts. So quest is to have a journey, a book that has a journey, and I had read The Golden Braid. The next prompt is magical creature has an animal, and I was supposed to read The Looking Glass Illusion, didn't get to it, so instead I'm going to put The Mermaid's Tale. Hidden Identity, a new to me author. I read Queen of Snow because those two authors are new to me. Prince, More Than One POV. I read Shelter of the Most High because you do get Eaton's perspective as well as Sophia's. True Love's Kiss, a clean fairy tale retelling. And for that, I read The Golden Braid because it is definitely a clean fairy tale. Faithful Companion, favorite genre. Shelter of the Most High because that is historical fiction, biblical fiction. So those are my favorite genres. Beauty, Something Beautiful. I put The Princess Pact for this one because that is a stunning cover. Stroke of Midnight, Booktuber Rec. So I was supposed to read The Silent Songbird, did not get to it, but I believe The Mermaid's Tale, Katie from Paperbacks and Ponytails recommended this book last year around this time. And then Slay the Dragon, meant to read last year, and that I did put on Queen of Snow, so I did read that. So I am officially a queen for this readathon. So that was the goal. So I, again, had a great time. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comments what you think about any of the books that I mentioned, and I hoped that you guys had a great time if you participated in this readathon. I would love to know what you ended up reading and what was the level that you guys ended up being, whether maid, princess, queen, etc. I hope you have a great day, guys, and I will catch you in another video. Bye.